The Associated Press is today reporting about new worries over changes to what our children are taught in school. So far, 45 states have signed on to a new set of what are called Common Core standards for reading, math, and writing, aimed at bringing different states into alignment with each other. But now 9 states are having second thoughts about this, and we're hearing controversial claims about how the feds might use this program to data mine our students and their families. Bob Bowden is an education analyst and the director of the education documentary, The Cartel. Bob, good to see you.
Good to see you again,
What is it?
Megyn.
What is Common Core?
Well, so what are education curriculum standards, right? So the idea is what, you can talk about what grade do you teach long division, or what grade in high school do you introduce Shakespeare? Should kindergartners be able to count from 1 to 20 or 1 to 100? These are things that different states define differently, and so kids often move, right? So if a kid goes to 3rd grade in Georgia and then moves to go to 4th grade in Alabama, should they be completely thrown off? This is the argument for it, in terms of, you know, what they're learning and where they are in class. Should they be behind, for example, if that happens? Another argument is that there are economies of scale, so that with new software developed, new textbooks, that it makes sense that if you have one standard for what a 3rd grader should know, you can have a 3rd grade textbook company, and instead of developing all these different ones, it's less expensive
Well,
to
in
have
theory,
one.
I like that. In theory, I like that because I don't want the kid who's finishing kindergarten down in Georgia to only count 1 to 20, while where the New York kids can count 1 to 100.
As Patricia Levesque of the Foundation for Excellence in Education says, it's good we have a common electrical grid, so you can go from state to state with one hairdryer and one cell phone charger, plug it in, not worry that it won't be 110 volts. It's a standard everywhere, and that standard is good.
But it's not as all rainbows and unicorns as you and I are setting it up to be. So the controversy comes where?
Well, this was originally sold as a voluntary effort by states, for states to get together and say, all right, well, we're going to make our standards a little more like yours and yours a little more like ours over here, and we'll all be in sync, right? What we have increasingly learned is the federal top-down involvement. So that means $1/3 billion was used by the federal Treasury money was used to set up these groups. We didn't really know that, most in the education reform at the beginning. We also learned later that, well, the Race to the Top initiative, where billions of dollars were given by the Obama administration to certain states if they liked what those states were doing in education. And that was one of the criteria for giving out the federal money. Are you down with Common Core? Also, waivers to No Child Left Behind, which had some onerous federal penalties if you were found in noncompliance with No Child Left Behind. Well, you could get waived from all that by the federal government if you were good with Common Core. And so the federal government became a larger and larger role in terms
but is
of
that
driving
controversial
the
if Common Core is not controversial? Is there something about the lesson plans that is problematic, that people don't want their children learning and they don't want Arnie Duncan enforcing?
Exactly. Well, that's exactly right, and you set it up right in that there's really a nascent new pushback against Common Core, and it's really rooted in this idea that first of all, this could just be the entree for further federal involvement. What if 5 and 10 years from now the federal government kind of says, we actually kind of like this textbook and really think you should use it, and we really think that you should spend this much time like teaching geometry, and we have a reading list that's our new federal reading list. You really have to pick from this stuff. So there could be future federal requirements, in other words, that this is the camel nose under the tent of federal involvement that people reject. Also, and you might say a larger concern, is we're just at the cusp of an explosion in innovation in education, right? We have online learning exploding. We have niche charter schools in almost every state. Many states now have voucher programs for private schools teaching certain specialized curriculum to different kinds of kids. And that right at this exact moment of, Starbucks adding 20 kinds of coffee, instead of just regular or decaf, in education, this is feared as a way to just implement a top-down, federalized ministry of education.
One size fits all.
One size fits all everywhere.
One size does not necessarily fit all when it comes to educating children.
Exactly. All children are different. As has been often said, you just need to meet 2 children to know that. And so now you have conservative groups like Tea Party groups opposing it, libertarian
Hold on,
groups
I want to talk to you about that, why the Tea Party opposes it, and this business about data mining our children and their families, and we'll do that right after the break. Bob Bowden is back with me now. He's with Choice Media. Bob, I want to pick up on this discussion about whether they are data mining our kids through this program, Common Core, because now when you say, okay, the feds are overseeing it, the feds are making certain things conditional upon states adopting it, and the feds are going to data mine our kids and their families through it? How?
Right. So what does data mine mean, right? So to some, the more innocuous explanation is that it's just taking averages to find out how the average kid is doing because they need to adjust the educational standards in a certain way to compensate for, well, kids really, they are getting this concept, but they're really missing this other concept in their second grade reading or something. And so we're going to make an adjustment. That's, so people generally don't have a problem with that. But the question then becomes, where is all this data housed? How specific is it to the kid? And then ultimately, how is it going to be used later? At the risk of controversy here, when Google had a program called Doodle for Google for children, they would basically doodle like the Google logo, and they would be a national contest. They would pick their favorite doodle. It would go on the website, right? So they asked for the Social Security, or at one point, they asked for each kid's Social Security number, children's Social Security number on the Google form.
Unbelievable.
Exactly. And so when that came out, they quickly, abandoned it. But they said, oh, no, it's just to make sure we don't get duplicate entries, was their reason. But ultimately, what sort of
How
privacy
much sharing
issues
do we want to do with the federal government at such a young age for our children? When we've done so many stories on school curricula, we had the test question that suggested the United States is responsible for bringing 9/11 upon itself. We had teachers encouraging the children, asking female students to cover up in burqas and use the term freedom fighters when discussing terrorists. That's not part of a Common Core curricula, but it's controversial.
I don't think the burqas would be, no.
Right? So, I mean, but that's the danger in putting the decision-making on learning in the hands of one central authority. Maybe you disagree with that authority. I got to run, Bob. Thank you for your expertise.
Anytime.